Hello and welcome, Brett here with Clickmill.co. In this video, I want to address the question, is sharing the gospel message manipulative, and is training, right? Evangelism training manipulative? We've gotten some comments that seem to insinuate this from maybe more of a non-Christian perspective, which is great. Love the comments. In addition to that, also, I've heard this from Christians. Well, using psychology to share the gospel is manipulative. Okay, so I want to talk about both of those things. Firstly, is sharing the gospel manipulative on its face in its most essential form? Well, that would be a question of, is sharing any beliefs, any truly deeply held beliefs by anybody, is that manipulative? Is it manipulative for an atheist or an agnostic or a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Jehovah's Witness? Is it manipulative for someone to express their beliefs at all? Of course not. We can all share what we believe, and that's not manipulative. It's just saying, I believe this. And of course, that's why we all know what everybody else believes. I mean, if you want to read about it, it's all there because someone is sharing their beliefs from every single perspective, and that's totally acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, are there Christians who communicate what they believe with manipulative or toxic communication strategies? 100%. I won't, two things can be true at the same time. I can believe that the gospel message is true, and I can also believe that there are people who share it in a really toxic way. It bothers me to no end when I hear Christians using toxic communication. Now, are there other people in other faiths that use toxic communication strategies and manipulative communication strategies? 100%. 100%. We all do. We're all imperfect and we all struggle to communicate in a healthy way. And so one of these ways, for example, is mind reading. And I've heard Christians use this, and it drives me crazy. Like, let's say I'm talking to an atheist and I'm doing mind reading, right? It's like, oh, well, you don't really believe there's no God. Deep down in your heart, there's a God. You're just rebelling. That is mind reading. How could I possibly know what someone else has in their mind or in their heart? That's not even a Christian perspective. The Bible says man judges by outward appearance, judges action, right? Not eternal salvation, right? But man judges behavior and God judges the heart. So that's ridiculous on its face, and Christians should not do that. And it's also toxic, just across the board. That's not communication that is received well by anyone at any time. When we mind read, it makes them feel defensive, and it makes them feel attacked, and they get defensive and they shut down. So we just can't have a healthy conversation when that is a strategy that's being used from any side. And Christians absolutely do that. Another one I've heard Christians do is controlling language, which is trying to determine the behavior of the other person. And that might be something like, well, you need to accept Jesus. You have sin, and so you need to accept Jesus to get salvation. You have to do that, or else, something to that effect. Well, that's controlling. You have to do this in your free will and what your own, thoughts and trying to figure out what you want to do and what you think is true. Oh, no, that doesn't matter. You need to do what I tell you to do. That's controlling. That is a manipulative communication strategy, and that's super unhelpful and unhealthy. And if you've received that, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It makes you feel defensive. It makes you feel uncared for. And what would you think if someone did that? They're critical and judgmental. And I think Christians do that all the time. And I think people of other faiths do that all the time. I think Christians are just really good at that as well. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't believe the gospel message. I just do think that there are a lot of communication issues that Christians use. And I do think that that can be manipulative. Is sharing the gospel or sharing a set of beliefs manipulative? No, that's not manipulative at all. Now, moving on from that, do I think, and this is more of a second order manipulation, because once you start training something and intentionally thinking about what you're going to do in advance and strategizing, that is a second order question. Is evangelism training manipulative, bringing in psychology, bringing in debate, bringing in apologetics, bringing in whatever, all this stuff that we talk about in these evangelism training videos, is that manipulative? And that is something that I've even heard Christians will say is manipulative. And I would totally disagree. And here's why. And so here's the first thing. I hear non-Christians, even in the comments, and this is why I'm making this video, saying, that's super manipulative. This video is super manipulative. You're playing on the pain of people, and they share with you, and then you spring the trap. Ha ha, I got you, and now I'm going to share Jesus. That is a gross misrepresentation of my heart. And I think if a Christian did it that way, that would be very manipulative. Like, we're just going to like dig into the most painful areas of this person's life so that we can spring Jesus and get them. Wow, that is cold. That is cold. See, with me, I have spent a portion of my life very angry at God and trying actively to be an atheist because, I was really angry with God for a number of bad things, the problem of evil, for those of you who know what that is. And I am actively looking to be an atheist so I can just get away from this God who allowed all this stuff. Well, I knew the cosmological argument. I knew the teleological argument. I knew all these different arguments. And in my mind, I had to have an answer to these questions, and I could not find one. I have listened to so many atheists, and the assessment that I was able to give, despite the fact that I did not want to be a Christian, I could not justify leaving my faith because I did not personally, right? I'm not saying they're not convincing. Obviously, a lot of people are convinced by them. But the arguments that I heard from atheists, I did not find convincing, and I did not feel that they answered the objections that I already knew to that specific worldview. And I was trying to accept them. And ultimately, what I came back to was, all right, God, fine. I do believe you exist, but I don't like you. And I'm just going to put up with you. And so that was a whole season of my life. Well, when I talk to people now and they start sharing something that is very deeply personal to them and very painful, whether I've known them for 10 minutes, and sometimes that does actually happen, or I've known them for 10 years, I'm not looking to spring a trap. I know what it is to feel pain, right? I've had trauma. I have been through really difficult things. And I also know that despite my best efforts to debunk God and Jesus and all this stuff, I have not been able to do it. And I also know that that has been the source of the greatest healing that I have ever experienced. And when they start sharing, I'm not trying to spring a trap, right? I have a deeply and genuinely held belief that God, or excuse me, Jesus Christ is the medicine to the deepest wounds of our heart. And he even presents himself as that. He goes, I don't come for the healthy. It's not the healthy that need a doctor. It's the sick. People who have everything and have no needs that they're at least aware of, but have no needs, they're not looking for medicine. They don't need medicine. The rich young ruler had everything he could possibly want. He's not going to give it all up and follow Jesus. And he didn't. And Jesus accepted that. He gave him his freedom. That's okay. So to that end, when people are sharing with me, I really care about those people. And when I'm listening to them, I have a stack of books down here on counseling and therapy and Christian therapy, and just how do you listen? How do you empathize? How do you share? I just want to love them and let them know that they're not alone, because really, people don't have people to just listen. And love covers a multitude of sins or wrongs, right? People have been wronged, whether it's from the church or not from the church. Like, life is tough and they've been wronged, and people find healing through other people. And my priority is just to hear them, because boy, it's helpful for me when people heard me when I was struggling. And that is my number one priority. And some of the conversations that I've had the privilege to have with people who are hurting are some of the conversations that are the most dear to my heart. And I really believe that if there is a moment when they have felt heard and they want to hear my opinion, and I ask permission to share what I believe and what has been the most healing thing in my life and what I actually believe is most true, I'm not trying to trick anybody. I am genuinely trying to share with them in the way they can hear best what I think is the ultimate medicine for the wound. I'm not trying to open up wounds for fun. If they want to talk about it, I'm here to listen. And if they want what I think, then I'll share. Is that manipulative? I don't think that's manipulative at all, you know? And I think if you believed what you had was the ultimate cure to the deepest pains in life, you'd probably want to share it too, right? And this is what we see in the New Testament. People ran all around like crazy people, grabbing people to bring them to Jesus because the stuff he was doing was unbelievable. And that is the experience I've had with Christ in my own life. So of course I want to share that. And it's not manipulative. And I think if you're watching this, you know, and it's like, well, this is manipulative, you can kind of put yourself maybe in the shoes of someone I would be talking to. If I'm talking to you and you're resistant and you don't want to hear the gospel, I'm not going to share it with you. You're telling me your boundary. I don't want to hear it. I don't like the gospel message. I don't like Christians. I don't want to hear it. Totally respect it. And I just listen to you. Is that manipulative? No, that's just being respectful. If I were talking to you and I'm listening to you and you say, I'm not really interested in sharing the gospel, hey, no problem. And you're sharing with me and we're talking and you're feeling cared for and you go, this guy's not so bad. Maybe I would be interested in hearing his opinion because I feel safe and I don't feel judged and I'm not feeling criticized like I have with a lot of other conversations with believers. All right, maybe I'd be willing to listen. And then I shared, would that be manipulative? That's not manipulative. That's just healthy communication. So is it manipulative to teach evangelism training and how to communicate in a healthy way where people's defenses aren't up and we're sharing deeply held beliefs in a healthy way? No, I don't think that's manipulative at all. I do understand it can seem that way because I do talk about using certain psychological things like reciprocity and cognitive dissonance. And I do see how it can come across that way. Do I think it is at the end of the day, is that really manipulative? No, that is just an explanation of how people bond and how people build relationships naturally and don't do it the unnatural way. Just communicate like people are supposed to communicate. So whether or not they accept what you have to say, and that's totally your choice. If I was sharing the gospel with you, totally your choice. I'm not going to tell you what to choose. I'm just going to say, here's what I believe. And maybe this is helpful for you. And all of those communication strategies, all those psychological strategies, that's just words that define how people most comfortably communicate. And why would I make it more difficult to get the gospel across? That's exactly what you don't like. I'm going to try to not make you feel criticized and not make you feel condemned or judged or any of this other stuff, because I'm just a person like you. We're all trying to do our best. I'm telling you what I believe. You're telling me what you believe, and we can agree or we can disagree, and that's okay. We can respect each other. So no, I don't think at its root gospel training is manipulative. I don't think sharing what you believe, the gospel of Jesus or any other gospel, I don't think that's manipulative. I think toxic communication can be manipulative both intentionally and unintentionally. Hopefully this helps to clear up some of those questions. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.